I grew up as part of a Ukrainian refugee community where we celebrated, promoted and maintained our Ukrainian language, culture and identity. And among my friends were the children of Ukrainians from eastern Ukraine, from the Donbass, Donetsk, Kharkiv, Dnipro, Luhansk. Their parents were the survivors of the Holodomor. And we were vaguely aware of the Holodomor as children, Stalin's artificial famine. We were aware that millions were starved to death, but it was not something that our parents talked about a lot. It was too painful amongst all the other painful experience that they had lived through. And the world knew very little about this great tragedy, but what they did know was the result of journalism of people like Welshman Gareth Jones, Malcolm Muggeridge, and a few others. And just to follow on from Darren Miller's comments, I think it was a great honour that we have now in the National Library of Ukraine in Kyiv a plaque in English, Ukrainian and Welsh, which is a tribute to Gareth Jones, and also the intention to have a cultural delegation to Ukraine to maybe present a similar plaque to go onto the street in Kyiv that has been named after Gareth Jones. Once the Soviet Union broke up, that the secrecy came to an end, and when the KGB and the Communist Party archives were opened up, that the full scale of the horror of the Holodomor began to become better known and better understood. The famine was the product of Stalin's forced collectivization, which affected large tracts of eastern and central Ukraine, but also other surrounding countries. Millions starved to death. In Ukraine, the precise figure will never be known. In Russia, the records of the period continue to be destroyed, as do the records of the mass deportations and executions during the purges. In Ukraine, the estimate is between 4 to 6 million people were killed. Many continued to die in the following years from the famine-related illness, disease, and then the subsequent further Stalin purges. Grain was seized and it was sold abroad for foreign currency to fund industrialization. And in Ukraine, there were many uprisings. It was an area where there was little Bolshevik support, and it is clear from documents since revealed that Stalin feared losing control of Ukraine. For this reason, the suppression was exceptionally harsh. Villages that resisted were closed down, a measure which effectively amounted to a death sentence. It became an opportunity for Stalin to break Ukrainian resistance and identity, and it is for this reason that the famine as it affected Ukraine became known as the Holodomor, which translates as death by famine. And it became known as an act of genocide and has been recognized by many parliaments across the world as an act of genocide. This is the area, of course, that is now the frontline resistance to Russia's invasion of Ukraine by the sons and daughters of the survivors of the Holodomor and also the sons and daughters of those families brought in to replace the millions of the dead. The Holodomor was succeeded with the intense Russification of Ukraine, the mass execution of poets, artists, writers, film directors, musicians, in fact, anyone who represented Ukrainian identity. Only a couple of weeks ago is a special day in Ukraine because it was the day when poets and artists, painters, writers were actually rounded up and mass executed for the sole reason that they represented the Ukrainian identity. And of course, it is a policy that is being renewed by Putin in occupied Ukraine to this day, where museums are looted, Ukrainian books destroyed, the Ukrainian language banned in schools, where the population are subject to deportation, the children to re-education, torture, rape and murder. Russia has become a fascist country. Yet even in this country, there are its apologists, those who deny the Holodomor, deny the genocide and perpetuate the Putin narrative. And it is for this reason that it is so important to commemorate the Holodomor, to remember the dead and to support those in Ukraine who to this day are fighting for freedom and who I would describe as the people who are really defending the front line of democracy in Europe. So I'm proud that Wales is the first of the UK parliaments to declare the Holodomor an act of genocide. And I hope this is something that will be followed as an example by other UK parliaments. Today is also the 1000th day of the Russian invasion. And this Saturday, commemoration will take place in the Senedd, and a 2 p.m. silence to coincide with remembrance at the same time in Ukraine, in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. So I want to thank everyone in this Senedd and all the people of Wales for their solidarity until Ukraine obtains peace and victories. Slava Ukraini, Heroyam Slava.